everybody, and welcome to the LeanTossup Call of Duty League podcast. We are here now. It is time for week one, Major 1, week 1. We finally have matches now. It's been a long off season, and we're ready to go. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host at CDLMetrics. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yeah, excited. We're finally here. It's been, I think I did the math correctly, like 173 days, something like that, since our last CDL match. So it's been a while, to say the least. I've got on my Minnesota Rocker hat. It's a little hard to see because the hat itself is dark, but I'm repping my team. Not sure how well they'll do this year. We'll obviously talk about them later, as well as every other team. But yeah, really excited. We're just hours away, basically, from finally getting this thing kicked off.
Yeah, it's just hours away now from some of these games starting to be played. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited for that. All right, so this is something we're going to be monitoring throughout the entire year. The race to 1580, the draft results. So obviously there has not been any results as of yet, but these are the results. So just a quick recap is that CDLMetrics and I, we each drafted 6 teams. We're going to see who has the most points at the end, and we believe the midway point of that is 1580. If we're wrong, oops. If not, it doesn't matter. So these are our teams. Go ahead and let us know in the comments whose team you think is better, and we're finally going to get some results this week. I think it'll balance out. I'm not sure if your teams have more games this week or not, but whatever. It'll balance out eventually. All right, so news of the week. So if you want to go ahead and talk about this. So this is the Season 1 roadmap.
Yeah, as we record this on Wednesday, the 6th, today is the day that Season 1 released. Very exciting, especially for Warzone players. New Warzone map is obviously huge. The early indications are that it's very good and much better than Warzone 2, so that's good to hear. But on the multiplayer side, we also have some updates. Obviously, there's some new guns that are being introduced to the rotation. Obviously, the pros won't be playing with these. They probably will get banned because generally the new weapons that come out with new seasons are very good because the developers want people to use them. So we probably won't see those in CDL play. Some new maps being introduced. Meat is the name of the first one. It's very small, but early returns are that it's fun to play, so that's good. But again, probably not in the CDL. Greece is a 6v6 map like Meat, a little bit bigger, and early returns on that are that it could be competitively viable. I doubt we see it in the Major 1 qualifiers at all. I'm pretty sure the map set that we've had set in stone will be it for the next couple months, but maybe Greece makes its way into the rotation if the pros like it enough. And then you have some other maps for other game modes and whatnot. You can see ranked play on that graphic. Not in yet. It expects to be in, I think, in January at some time. So some things we still have to wait on, but yeah, it's a big day nonetheless. Season 1 finally arriving. And with that, there are some other big updates if you want to go on to the next slide here, Robert. So, with Season 1, we have some major patch notes. First off, with movement. And this got leaked a couple days ago, and there was some video footage of what this looks like. Now, I don't know if they've tweaked it since that video footage has come out, but essentially it's a nerf to snaking, which was talked about on last week's episode as a GA that the pros instituted where they're just not going to do it. And it's a tough GA to follow. And GA meaning gentlemen's agreements. It's just a rule that the pros agree to adhere to. And if they don't, then they just publicly shame the other team. So a loose rule. But this snaking nerf, if you look at the video that came out a couple days ago, it's a very minor tweak. Essentially, after a couple transitions from crouched to standing or prone to crouched or whatever, your character delays his movement up again by a little bit. So it's a little hiccup, if you want to call it, in the movement from going up and down. So you can't just bob up and down constantly without any penalty anymore. It's a step in the right direction. I don't know if it's enough for now, so I think the snaking GA will stay in, at least for the time being. But the developers have said that they are open to tweaking this further if need be. So again, promising that maybe the snaking mechanic will just be fixed well enough where the pros don't have to GA it, because in an ideal world, you won't have that GA if the developers do their job well. The second point here, spawns, and I have not seen if these are drastically improved or not, but the wording in this is good. The first bullet point on spawns doesn't matter a ton. The second bullet point does. The second one reads, in Hardpoint, several adjustments have been made to improve the flow of combat and increase control of team-owned areas. It's a lot of words, but hopefully it just means the spawns will make more sense, because we see on some of these Hardpoint clips the enemy team spawning in front of the other team, and the other team just shoots the guy in the back, and it's just not ideal. So hopefully those spawns will be a little more safe, I guess would be the word to call it. Like, hopefully they're just not wacky like they have been in some games. So yeah, those are two patch notes that are relevant for the CDL. We'll see how much of an improvement they are, but still, it's something to take note of for sure.
Yeah, I think the snaking one is very notable, and I think that actually could have a huge impact on the pro league. Spawns or whatever, it's both sided, right? It'll help both sides in a game, but I think snaking, especially, there's certain players that and teams that do it more than others, and I think you stop that, I think that could have a huge impact on the way this works. And
yeah.
Here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the second set of patch notes, mostly user interface stuff. The one of note would be the first bullet point, which is that player health and stamina are now shown as bars on a player's HUD. So you can see exactly, it doesn't give you a number if you get shot and take damage. It doesn't tell you like, oh, you have 70 out of your 150 health, but it shows you a bar of how much health you have left. So useful to know how healthy you are as a player, or in terms of stamina, how if your tactical sprint has refreshed yet, or if you're going to run out soon. So yeah, just little things that I think help players overall understand how to approach gunfights, how to approach movement on the map. The other bullet points listed are pretty minor, or just graphical changes or volume changes to little things that don't mean much, but the user interface thing I think will help overall. Again, not a huge deal, but just something to take note of.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, now this is something close to you because you are a Minnesota Rocker fan. So can you explain to us what this partnership is about?
Yeah, I think this happened yesterday officially, or maybe it was this morning. I'm totally mixing up my days, but yeah, essentially Minnesota Rocker have transferred ownership, and when I say Minnesota Rocker, version 1, which is the parent organization that owns the Minnesota Rocker brand, version 1 is essentially transferring ownership to G2 Esports. So that's a big deal. G2 Esports have come out and said, we're not going to change the brand. You can see on this picture we have the rocker eye is red. That's not the actual logo. It's just something they did for the announcement. Yeah, it is a big deal because ownership changes matter. So the version 1 brand will be put on hold for the time being. I know they had a Rocket League team and a Valorant team. I didn't really follow either of those that closely, so I'm not sure if those are staying and again transferring over to G2. We'll see about that. But as far as this year, nothing changes much. Like, the Rocker team is the same, the coaches are the same. A lot of employees at version 1 have been let go, unfortunately. That's just it's the business side of things. We've known for a while now throughout the offseason that version 1 was looking for a partner going into this year. The financials never came out, but they were definitely an organization that spent a lot of cash to increase their brand, and it worked. The Minnesota brand throughout the upper Midwest, specifically in Minnesota, has really grown over the past few years, and I think a lot of that has to do with Rocker hosting majors. They had private home series events in last year. They had watch parties around Minneapolis and the Twin Cities. So they really went all out. They had the first CDL event ever, that launch event in 2020. So yeah, they really committed to trying to build it out. I think in the end, maybe the costs outweighed the money they were bringing in, but that's the price you pay for trying to build out a brand in a somewhat unstable esports market that we live in right now. So again, not anything that's going to affect the team moving forward. The team is still the same. The coaches are the same. The rocker brand and color scheme and all that is still the same. But moving into next year, we could see the Minnesota Rocker totally change branding, and that would be a bummer, but understandable with new ownership.
And this was something similar we saw last year when I think, what was it? Florida was then sold out and bought by the Heretics group, and then same thing with the owners of the Ravens, that was changed as well. So we've seen this before, but it doesn't usually affect the season. That season, it usually affects in the off season, and we have no idea what's going to happen in the off season too. Yeah, let's see what happens there. Okay, so actually, I could take this one here. This one is actually very sad, especially for me. Bryce and Tung were removed from the CDL talent lineup. That one is really sad. Lee notified both casters just 8 days before opening day. Tung explained that budgets were the main reason for the decision. That's really rough. You find out 8 days before you're not casting that you've lost your job. That's rough. And then Lando stepping away from casting. He announced that on, I think that's November 10th. The question is again, is it that he was this the same thing where he was getting cut because of budgeting reasons and he didn't want to say that? I don't know. But yeah, I did actually like Lando. He had been growing on me. I thought he was actually pretty good. He was a little bit better than his co-host there. But yeah, I really like Bryce and Tun. They were the only EU casters, so that's sad to see them go. But yeah, the whole point was this wasn't supposed to be this way. Things were supposed to be, we're getting the YouTube deal, everything's going to be fine, and now we're cutting casters. Who are the only casters? Okay, Miles and Chance. Okay. And who else?
Merc and Maven. Merc and Maven, I think, will be back. That's at least what they did. That's what they did last year. I have no clue about anyone else. I just assume, like you said, Miles and Chance will be back. I assume Merc and Maven will be back. Are they doing more than just majors? Maybe not. Lando's partner that he casted with, Study, is he staying on now that he's been odd man out, or are they going to fill Lando's position with someone else? But yeah, Bryce and Tun, obviously, the EU duo when it comes to the CDL talent. In a video, Tun explained, that the budgets were the main reason. He said flying both of them out from Europe to the States for the majors isn't super cost effective. Now, I imagine the other casters are also getting flown out to go to the majors, but they're in the States. It's a small difference. I think overall the CDL just said, listen, if we're only going to do one match at a time and maximum 4 matches per day, I guess sometimes 5 if you include majors, we can do with 2 casting duos, maybe 3 if Study gets another partner. Or if they move someone from the desk to Lando's spot. However they shuffle things around. I think 4 sets of casters, it's great to have that many, but I think the CDL just in the end was like, I think we could probably do with 3 and be okay. So it sucks to see. Obviously the CDL, we'll see if they even exist next year, but for now they're trying to cut costs wherever they can. So it's unfortunate.
I will say that if you are a multi-million, and not just $5 million league, this is like $100 million league or so, you're a company that makes billions and billions of dollars. If you're really splitting hairs of, it's cheaper to fly someone from the Northeast versus flying someone from the UK, because that's a bit much, I think. I think that's a little okay. Okay, like, you're not saving that much money. A couple $100 per flight by 4. Well, by 2, by 4, you're not saving that much money. Like, I don't know. This is...
Agreed. I think it's more of a salary issue than anything else. Obviously, that's where they make the most.
This
But
does
yeah,
this is not boding well for this. I think this is now again whatever comes next may or may not be better than this. I don't know, but this is looking not good, shall we say? Yeah, the point here is that the CDL posted this schedule, nice graphics here, but they didn't say where the matches are going to be. Maybe they're on Kick. I don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be YouTube and Twitch. Would have been nice to get a confirmation of either or. But yeah, do you even know where we're watching this in 2 days?
I assumed it's only YouTube, but you could be right. Maybe it is Twitch as well. No clue. We're less than 48 hours away as of this recording from the matches starting. You think the league would announce where to watch them, but we're still waiting. Hopefully, once this podcast comes out on Thursday, we have an idea, because I can't imagine the league waiting until the day of to announce where the matches are. But maybe they will. I don't know. Or maybe they just won't announce it and like we have to find them ourselves, because I don't know what's taken so long. But yeah, I'm assuming we'll be able to watch the matches this weekend. But just tell us where, Call of Duty League. Just give us a link or something. Like anything, please.
We'll see.
Anyway.
Okay, so match previews. So there are 11 matches this week. This is, I think, one of the beefier weeks in terms of matches, which is good. Some weeks are down to, I think, 9 games, I think. So this is generally one of the bigger weeks. Or no, I think it's even less. Some weeks are even less than that. Some weeks are down to 8,
I think is the lowest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some variance, which is good. That's what you want in a competitive sport. You want to be it variable how many games there are going to be on any given weekend. It's more fun that way. Just a quick note about this. We're going to go do previews here. This is the first game, but just a quick note about just some kind of overarching trends we're going to be doing here. Obviously, we've previewed each team. We feel somewhat comfortable with how each team is, but at the same time, it is very, like, we have a read on each team, but at the same time, that read could be very easily wrong, right? And comparatively, the book's read on each team could be very wrong, too. There's no real way to know. One of the biggest things you can be afraid of doing, and this is true for any sport, first weekend in the NFL, first weekend of college, is betting way too much and not knowing, betting way too much and then losing it all because you didn't know, right? What looks like a really good bet this week in 2 weeks could be like, well, of course that team was going to 3-0 that team, right? So, for example, this is phase versus breach. I'll just give this as an example here. The spread -1.5, -175. Boston +1.5, +125. In 2 weeks, or there's no matches in 2 weeks, but whatever. Say they played right after Christmas. The spread could theoretically be, if they were to play again, it could be phase -2.5, -150, right? Phase could be like, oh, of course they were going to at least 3-1 them, right? Or comparatively, maybe this is even, and maybe Boston is the favorite. Now, probably not. But theoretically, that could happen, right? Limit what you're betting this week at least, maybe even to an extent next week. There are player props. The books have a ton of player props. They have over-unders on each player for each map, and then each player for 3 maps. That's great. I love to see that. I am not touching that at all, because what you have no idea. See, that the thing is, in the NFL or in college or in basketball, there's going to be points. People are going to throw the ball, people are going to catch the ball, people are going to run the ball, etc. Here, there are so many unknowns because every year the game completely changes, right? So we have no idea pacing. We can estimate it from some scrims we've seen, but we have no idea, right? The snaking thing may completely change it. Spawns may completely change the pace of kills, right? We have no idea how the pace of kills is going to play in this game. And also, the amount of kills in a game depends on if it's a blowout or not, right? So do not, if you really have to bet a player prop, bet an under, because generally player props are juiced. Generally overs are always juiced rather than unders. So bet, if you have to bet an under, but if not, just leave everything alone. Keep track of it. I'd love to take a look at it and be like, oh, okay, this number looks right or this number looks wrong. And if you say this number looks way too high, because last year we had that. I think initially what it was like, there was way too many kills. They were basically back to Vanguard lines, and then they quickly adjusted down. So there was some value in me in the first week. But here, these kills look about right. I'm not touching any player props. very small bets on some of this stuff. Nothing too crazy. Don't bet the house on any of this stuff. Take the things that you feel most comfortable about, and bet those. And you know what? If you pass up on a game, that's fine. It's not a big deal. There's going to be a lot more games in the season. Once we know a lot more information about after a week of games, you'll start feeling a lot more comfortable about some of these bets. Is there anything else you want to add to that about just overarching trends here for first week?
Yeah, I echo everything you just said. Obviously, take it easy, enjoy opening weekend. There's a lot of COD to watch. 11 games is, I think, the most we'll ever have in a weekend outside of a major. Yeah, it should be fun. We'll have 2 games for most every team. Only a couple teams will play once, but yeah, a lot of data points to go through once the weekend is over. But yeah, if you're betting, if you're playing DraftKings, if you're taking player props on prize picks or whatever you're doing, go easy. One other thing I'll mention with player props that I think is super important and something we have no clue about is just the competitiveness within the league, because a lot of player props, the overs and the unders on player kills depends on who you're playing, right? If you're playing a weaker opponent, you will probably do better in that category. But on the flip side, if you're playing someone who's evenly matched with you, you might have longer games of hardpoint or more rounds in search and destroy or more rounds in control. Parity within the league can lead to longer games, can lead to more kills as well. And we don't really know what the breakdown of teams are when you rank them. Like, we have an idea there's a top 4 and then a middle and then a couple teams at the bottom, but that could very well change. We might have 2 clear-cut teams at the top and another tier below that and another tier below that. We'll see once we get some games done, but yeah, everything you said, just take it easy, enjoy. But if you want to have some fun and see some value somewhere, by all means, go for it.
Yeah. So, game 1, FaZe versus Breach. The money line, FaZe minus 450, Breach plus 300. FaZe is minus 175 on the spread, minus 1.5, minus 175. Breach plus 1.5, plus 125. And then you can see the maps lines as well. I think FaZe is one of the best teams in the league. I think Breach is taking a bit of a step back. The thing is, this minus 1.5, minus 175, this screams to me a line that would be minus like 400 in 2 weeks from now. What happens is when you get earlier in the season, what books love to do is they love to mash everything together. So, you never know who's better here, right? So everybody's similar. And the Breach plus 1.5 plus 125, it just seems designed to try to entice you and be like, FaZe wasn't that good last year. Maybe they could cover the plus 1.5. Maybe they could. I think that at minimum, a 3-1 is the most likely, which a minus 175 is. I think a 3-0 is definitely possible as well. When you look at some of the scrim results, this FaZe team has been terrifying in scrims. Boston has been less, not really particularly scary. I think specifically in hardpoint, I think this game seems like a much more, when you look at it, because I've seen some of the matches online, the one thing about Vanguard is all hardpoints just got close because it was so scrappy. That 25 points was a lot of points, but you saw last year, a lot of hardpoints ended 250 to 200. So when you watch like football, and I'm gonna make a lot of football analogies, so I hope whoever's listening to this is, and I know a lot of you are football fans. When you bet point spreads in football, there's a lot of what you call dead points. So for example, 1.5, a dead point. Not a lot of games are decided by 1 point. Same thing as 5. Very few games are decided by 5 points. And you have these point values where, it's like, for example, say you bet a plus 5.5. You're not generally going to lose a game by 5 points. You're basically saying, okay, if they lose by 3, if they lose by 4, I'm covered. But if they lose by 6, then I'm screwed, right? And there's these kind of point values where it's like 5.5 is a dead value, 9, very rare to lose by 3 field goals. That's pretty hard to do. Usually it's by 10 by a field goal and a touchdown, or 2 touchdowns. There's a lot of kind of these dead points. And the thing is, I think back in Vanguard, I think like 25 was the first dead point, and I think then 50 was the next one. But I think what we're seeing a lot of in last year's game was a lot of, okay, basically 0 to like 30, 40 was dead. if a team is winning a hard point, they're winning it by 50. They're getting that last hill, then they're going to basically soak up the money in that last hill. And I think it basically leads to more quote unquote blowouts, if that makes sense. It's not really a blowout. 250 to 200 isn't exactly a blow, but it's not particularly close. I think the minus 35 and a half, that seems like some value. I think 250 to 200 is more than possible here. And yeah, you could also maybe look at some control spreads. We're seeing control usually, again, back in Vanguard, very close. Usually most games were 3-2. It was basically like whoever gets defense on the last round wins. Last year, we actually started seeing 3-0s, 3-1s in controls. So I think when you're looking at it, minus 1.5s in some of those controls, the books might take a while to adjust to that. That, hey, 3-0, 3-1 is possible. A minus 1.5 in control isn't that bad either. What are your thoughts on this game? Do you see this the same way, or do you give any hope to Boston here in the first game of the season?
Yeah, it's tricky. I have FaZe power ranked as my number one team going into this year, and I actually like Breach's outlook, I'd say, more than most people. I have them power ranked fifth. So going into it's tricky. It's not like I have a strong opinion opposite of these teams. I have each of them. With that being said, and I talked about it on last week's show, FaZe in Search and Destroy is just so consistent year to year, and last year was probably their best year yet in that game mode. You look at the Breach team that's constructed as is. It's a slasher revenge game that's fun. It's also a Priesta revenge game. If you go back a couple years, he was on FaZe. The SMGs on Breach, I don't really think can match up with FaZe's. I think they're good, but Simp and Abizi are their own thing. And the trio that is on FaZe have been together for so long. They have Search and Destroy coaches that I trust. I think FaZe and Search right now is a pretty safe bet to make, at least early on in the game where a lot is uncertain. So if I'm going to look anywhere in this, I'm going to look at the map 2, and this will be a theme at least for this first week and maybe next week. I don't know about anything after that, but if you have interest in something, if you have interest in a favorite, I would argue, because there are a lot of uncertainties right now, because we haven't seen anybody play, go all in on that favorite, right? Rather than take FaZe money line, I would argue taking them against the spread is a better thing to do, and just believe that you are correct. So yeah, I think a map spread in map 2 for FaZe to cover 1.5 at even money is pretty favorable. I did some quick note taking. So last year, FaZe and Search and Destroy covered 1.5 in Search 57.1% of the time. The fact that you're getting even money is great. Obviously, FaZe maybe aren't as good as they were last year in Search and Destroy, but to me, that is enough of value where I'm pretty interested in that. Hardpoint, we'll see. Obviously, FaZe are huge favorites in Hardpoint. Maybe that's just the addition of Draza helping in that game mode. I'm actually surprised to see the minus 334 for FaZe on map 1, but yeah, at least for now, I think FaZe, Search and Destroy, I'll just stick to what I trust.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's a very fair assessment there. And I do like the map 2 and map 3 spreads as well. I think those are very likely. FaZe is a control-y team. Again, I think a 3-0 is very possible. Maybe sprinkle a little bit on the 3-0. I think the 3-0 was like plus 200 or something. I think something like that. So go ahead and maybe sprinkle a little on that. I'll check that right now. But moving on to the next game, Thieves versus Surge. This one's actually going to be quite an interesting one. Let me just call up the 3-0 here. 3-0 plus 240. So there's some value there. All right, Thieves versus Surge. Thieves minus 150 on the money line. Surge plus 110. Thieves minus 1.5 plus 137. Surge plus 1.5 minus 188. So this one is interesting. I think I actually grabbed randomly, so this is the thing. The one of the spreads that's very, when you're looking at esports and you're specifically looking at game spreads like hardpoint spreads or League of Legends map kill spreads, shop around. You can get varying different results. For example, map 1 hardpoint spread is Surge plus 24.5. So I really like that one. That seems really good. I'll take that. I do Surge here. I don't know whether or not they're going to win this game. I think they're going to be very competitive in this game. One of the bets I do like for this overall for the weekend is Surge. This series to go over 4.5 games, to go to 5 games. I actually think that's cool, actually. I think that's not a bad bet to make first week. Outside of that, I think there's probably some value in some of these dogs. You don't feel the happiest betting a plus 110 dog. Just maybe don't. But I think this team might be better at hard point. Maybe Surge might be a little weaker in search and control. I don't know. But yeah, I do like Surge here. Give me the plus 24.5. Give me a little sprinkle on the over 2.5. Yeah, well, I think that's the best course here. What do you think?
Yeah, this one is priced pretty spot on, in my opinion. I think these teams are both in that second tier of teams. They're not phase, they're not optic, they're not subliners or ultra, but I have Thieves, Surge, and Breach as the next three that I feel good about their chances to qualify for champs. I think they should get in unless something crazy happens. But I just don't know if they have the firepower to compete with the top four. So this will be a fascinating match to watch. I do think Thieves are a slight step above Surge, so I do think the minus 150 is a fair moneyline price for them. You look at the map specifically, they have Thieves favored in the respawns, they have Surge favored in the search. I think that checks out too. Surge did win the Boston Invitational when the game launched. That was a search and destroy only tournament. And the Surge team that won, I should caveat with, two of the players on the team were from Seattle Surge. The other two players were like content creators and non-pros. That was just the format of that tournament. But still, nonetheless, Seattle Surge won that tournament. So yeah, this is going to be a watch and see, or just wait and see match, I should say. Thieves versus Surge. I think Thieves get it done. I like their team construct just a little bit more, but I am warming up to Seattle ever so slightly. They are getting some good attention. When I go on Twitter, it seems like people are in on this team. They're constructed well. They have a Rookie of the Year candidate in Abuza. We'll see. They have a great coach, right? Rambo Ray comes over. They have pieces that interest me. I just think the Thieves team is slightly better constructed. So in the end, I think Thieves probably take it. But yeah, a 3-2 either way would not shock me whatsoever. So the over 4.5 maps, I think, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, I think this could be a close game. Again, one of the things I will say is that Thieves are generally one of the more public teams. That a lot. They're at minus 150. If this wasn't Thieves, exact same roster, but it was LAG, what would the line be? If this was Paris, or not Paris, Vegas, if this was Minnesota, right? I feel like there's a little bit of it's the Thieves baked into the spread. I feel like if it wasn't there, this line would be would be basically even. I feel like this is even, but because it's Thieves, you're having to pay the Thieves price, and that's also one of the reasons why I'm taking the hard point spread there too. Plus 24.5. That's too many points there. But yeah, I agree. I think this game's gonna be very even. I think this is gonna be a really good indicator to see which of these two teams is better, and I'm excited to see which one is the better team. Okay. Oh, here we go. This is a race to 1580 match. The last match on Friday, Optic versus Subliners. I guess this is going to technically two of my teams play, so I have to win. But then also it sucks because they're playing. But anyways, Optic versus Subliners. Optic. Actually, no, two of your teams play early on Friday too, right? Because yeah, you have Breach and Phase, right? Yeah, friendly fire on both
And
sides.
yeah,
So
you have Thieves and Surge, so
yeah. So the
yeah.
winner of this, so basically the winner of this game will take a very early lead of 10 points, an insurmountable 10-point lead in the race to 1580. Optic is actually a dog. A little surprising there. Plus 100 to Surge, to Subliners minus 138, but and then Optic plus 1.5 heavily favored minus 225. Subliners minus 1.5 plus 162. I A part of me wants to say that the fact that Subliners is even favored at all means that they're the better team and that you just take the money line and take the minus 1.5 and call it a day. Um, this is concerning to me. The fact that Optic is one of the more public teams. We've seen them have ridiculous prices to start the season at times, and yet it's close. Minus 138 plus 100 is, I think, probably one of the closest matches of the weekend. But that's a couple of paces off from dead even. Dead even would be minus 120. This is one off from that. It's I kind of just think you say, cool, we're going to go with subliners here. And subliners spread -1.5, and then you walk away and just see what happened. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this one is weird. I'm very much looking forward to this match. I think it's probably the best of the weekend. So the fact that we're getting it on day one to close it out is fantastic. And yeah, someone will have a lead in the race to 1580. I have Optic, you have subliners. So I guess I'm cheering for Optic in that regard. But yeah, this one confuses me a little bit. If you look at the futures market for both of these teams, Optic are the third favorites to win champs at, I believe it's plus 300, I want to say. I haven't looked recently. And
I'll
subliners are
check. I'll check.
fourth. And yeah, double check on that. But for sure, Optic are third, subliners are fourth, and it's not like they're neck and neck. I believe Optic
300,
is
400. So close, but not that close.
yeah, that's a decent gap between the two. But for some reason in this game, subliners are the favorite. And I was bummed when I saw the line on this because I was ready to say subliners should be the favorite, but somehow they are. So it doesn't make sense to me. I think the pricing is pretty accurate overall. So again, a game that is just a fun watch for me. We'll see. I think both teams improved greatly this offseason. I have subliners ranked second overall in my power rankings. Optic I have ranked third. It should be a doozy. I'd love to see it go to a map 5, but we will wait and see. I can't say for certain that subliners are better in hardpoint and search and control. The lines on this seem to indicate that the book is just leaning towards subliners are a slightly better team in every game mode. And if that's the case, the futures market is wrong. But if the futures market is wrong, I don't know why it's still up like that. This whole thing confuses me, but what doesn't confuse me is the fact that this is going to be a great match. We'll learn a lot from this probably. So just sit back and relax and enjoy. And obviously root for a team if you're a fan of one of these teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's. Yeah, I'm happy to root for subliners. I just feel like when I look at spreads, when you watch and you bet a lot of football, Optic is very clearly the Dallas Cowboys of the CDL. And if a book is giving you plus money on the Dallas Cowboys, there's a reason why. If they're not doing it, just be like, yeah, they know that if you give the Dallas Cowboys at plus money, everybody is going to have them at plus money. If you're like, cool, we're going to give the Dallas Cowboys 3.5 or something, everybody is going to be on that, right? So what happens is because of that, then Dallas has inflated odds. I think of their last two playoff games against the 49ers. Hell, even their last game against the 49ers when they were 3.5 point underdogs and they lost by 24. Same thing. The books know that they are going to have 80% of the money is going to be on Optic. They know that. So they are okay with 80% of the money being on Optic. That tells you something. If they know that 60, 70, 80% of the money is going to be on one team and they're okay with that, this line is basically saying, we dare you to bet Optic. Go ahead. Go ahead. We're okay with it. Keep that in mind. That's what I'll say. Next up, Saturday. Again, this is another race to 1580 match. I'm on the Heretics. Yeah, another dog. But Ravens -163 on the money line. That seems a bit extreme. Heretics +120. Match -1.5 +150 to the Heretics +1.5 -200. This one is very iffy for me. I like. Do we really believe in the Carolina Royal Ravens that much? We're making them -163 favorites against a complete unknown team. That seems a bit excessive. Yeah. Now, I don't. That being said, I'm like, yes, I want to bet Miami Heretics. No, I do not want to bet the Miami Dolphins in this game. No, yeah, this is This is a perfect. I do not want to touch this game. This is cool. I will watch this game and like when something happens, I'll be like, oh, cool, that was interesting. I don't think one plus 120 is not enticing enough. The Ravens is clearly wrong. Betting the Ravens here clearly seems like a bad idea, but also betting Miami here is probably also a bad idea too. Yeah, just to leave this alone.
Yeah, I don't disagree completely. I agree that Royal Ravens price just feels off. they've been a team that has been getting steamed up quite a bit just on Twitter. People think that this team could be the last team in for champs. They like Clayster, they like the young SMGs. But this Miami team they could be fun. I don't know, they're a complete wild card. I don't know what to do. Like, when I power rank these teams, I made Ravens 10, I made Miami 11. To me, they're really close. I think the price for this game should be closer to what we just saw with Optic and Subliners, but this almost feels like the book is thinking the Ravens are a tier above Miami, and I don't understand how they can get to that quite yet. Maybe they are, right? Maybe the Ravens are like a legit team that could contend for a champ spot. But yeah, for me, this is Miami or nothing. Plus 120 money line is okay. I don't know. Yeah, for me, it's Miami or nothing. Again, this is a tough game to go over. I think the CDL did a pretty good job for this opening weekend, like matching up teams that are pretty close. We'll get to a couple not so close games in a minute, but for the most part, a lot of these matchups head to head look tough to call. And that's what we want in the first weekend, so we have an idea of who are the best teams and who are the worst teams. Yeah, an interesting one to kick off Saturday, the two rebranded teams, if you will. But yeah, for me, I think you go with Miami or you just kick back and enjoy.
Yeah, agreed. Next up, Saturday match 2, we have the Vegas Legion versus Minnesota Rocker. Legion plus 110 on the money line, Rocker minus 150, plus 1.5 minus 200 for Legion, minus 1.5 plus 150 for Rocker. Yeah, this is another one I'm just like, yeah, I feel nothing about this matchup. This is basically the same as the Miami Carolina match for me. I got nothing here. I want nothing to do with this match. Yep. Either of these teams could win. I'm low on Rocker, but this isn't the time to express that, I think. Again, you're not getting value on a plus 110 dog. Okay, maybe a bit, but Rocker could win this game. Will they? I don't know, maybe. Could they? Sure, but it's not worth it for me. This is not worth it to touch. I don't like anything particularly. What do you think here?
Yeah, I feel the same. For me, as a Rocker fan, I actually kind of like Legion on the value here. And I think you would probably agree if you had to choose, you would go with Legion. If I'm not mistaken, you had Rocker power ranked 11th last week. I had them at 9th, but I think I had Vegas one spot higher. I think you had Vegas one spot higher. The fact that we're getting what we think is a better team at plus money, it's something. It's not nothing. But yeah, it's not a ton of confidence. I think last week I mentioned you flip a coin between these two teams, and yeah, to me that's just what it feels like for now until we see some games in action. I'm higher on Vegas than the market at large. A lot of people seem to think that they're like only better than LA Gorillas, and I think that they could compete for a champ spot. We'll see. I might be dead wrong because I'm way outnumbered in that category. I'm close to market with Rocker. I think they're a bubble team to make champs, 8th, 9th, something like that. I don't know. I get why the prices are where they are, but to me it would be Legion or pass. That's where I'll leave it.
Yeah, agreed. Legion or pass for me as well. Match 3, Ultra versus LAG. Ultra prohibitive negative 1600 on the money line. Gorillas plus 700. Toronto Ultra minus 2.5 plus 110. Ultra plus 2.5 minus 150. This is again another perfect example of this is what I see in the first game. This is an example of what I feel is like this is a line that in 2 weeks is going to be like minus 2.5 minus 250 or minus 200 or whatever. This LAG team has existed for a couple of weeks now. Ultra is a team that has existed basically in the offseason. They mostly existed since last year. They've added Envoy. That only makes them better. This LAG team has like Diamond Con and some other people, and Assault, who I am unsure why he's still back in the league. Yeah, I'm not. This doesn't fill me with confidence. And maybe I won't necessarily bet. Actually, 47.5, you could that's maybe bettable. But I'm not going to touch a hard point. Yeah, Search and destroy spread minus 150, no. A map 3 spread of mine. Look, they're basically saying, look at this, they're basically implying every single one of these games is a blowout. Like, how is a parlay of minus 600, minus 275, and minus 450 plus 110? That seems wrong to me. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is a
I
bet.
don't
This is a bet I
disagree.
like. This is a bet I like. Give me Ultra minus 2.5. This is a clear example of a line that's going to be minus 200 in a month from now. What do you think?
Yeah, I so this is a weird one. At first, I looked at the map 3 money line and the map 3 spread, and I thought to myself like, wow, like they don't even think LA Gorillas can get to around 5 in control. It's plus 150 that they just force around 5. And I saw that at first and I was like, maybe I like LA Gorillas in this spot. I did some research and turns out I don't like LA Gorillas at all. That being said, Toronto's price in a lot of this is just a little too high for me to get behind. The minus 2.5 at plus 110, if it was plus 120, plus 130, then maybe, but it's a little too short for my liking. But going back to control, LA Gorillas plus 1.5 rounds at plus 150. I went back. So last year, the worst team in control was LA Gorillas. That being said, this year's team looks a lot different than last year's team. But for the sake of this exercise, let's assume that this LA Gorillas team is also the worst at control. LA Gorillas covered 1.5 rounds in control 55.9% of the time last year. And that sounds great, right? You get 55.9% against every team. That was against every team in control. If you just shrink that down to the top 5 from last year, Phase, Subliners, Optic, Ultra, and Thieves, anytime they matched up with them, they covered plus 1.5 23% of the time. Not even close to plus 150. So they can maybe keep it close against mid teams, against other poor teams, but against these elite teams, I don't know if I have faith in them getting to a round 5. Now, we'll see if some of these control maps are super defensive favored. Maybe that can help them along the way start to cover these plus 1.5s. But yeah, for now, I do worry that LA Gorillas just get sucker punched on Saturday against Toronto Ultra. For me, it's just pass because Ultra's prices are too high, but I don't know if I'll even watch this game because it's going to be bad.
Yeah, it's funny about that because that's a really good stat, and it's good that you didn't exactly adjust it, but you functionally adjusted it by saying against the top teams they did this, because again, it's the same thing as the phase stat too. Okay, they covered the minus 1.5 at this rate, but like, at what point that also includes? And the thing is, I feel like the phase stat you quoted earlier about the minus 1.5, that number should actually be higher because phase went deep in a lot of tournaments. That means that they probably had a lot more games against good teams. So that means they probably actually covered that. If you adjust that down for the quality of team that we think Boston Breach is, that might actually be a higher number than just 55. That might be closer to 60, 65 potentially. But yeah, and you also made the point that this LAG team is different than last year. That is correct. But different does not equal good. That is not the same thing. Those are two different things. Different does not equal good. Yeah, I'm going with Ultra. At least this is one of my bets. I like this. Again, this is one of the things you do. You pick a couple of key spots. For example, I guess a couple of key narratives that I think one phase is good. All right, minus 1.5, perfect, right? Two, LAG is bad. Ultra minus 2.5, right? This is pick a couple of key spots and exploit those, and then leave a bunch of stuff. And we'll circle back in a couple of weeks when we know more about those other teams. That's the way I think of it. This one again, another race to 1580 match. Surge versus Breach. This time Surge is a slightly smaller dog to Boston. Surge plus 100 on the money line. Breach minus 138. Surge plus 1.5 minus 225. Breach minus 1.5 plus 162. Yeah, I would take Surge here, but this is pretty short. I'm probably just going to leave this one alone. Probably. Maybe a hard point spread, but probably not. Yeah, I'm at peace with leaving this one alone. I think we don't know enough about these teams. Again, it's weird. There's like a bunch of games that's like this team is going to beat this team, and there's a bunch of times when it's just like, we don't know who's going to win this game. And I think this is one of those clearly. And I think, yeah, this is a lot of those are just going to pass on because we don't know which team is better. And the books are saying like we think Breach is slightly better, but we don't. We also don't know. Yeah, I'm gonna take if it's Surge for me or pass, and it's 80% pass, 20% Surge. What's your take?
Yeah, this is 100% pass for me. A really interesting weekend for Surge. Obviously, they play LA Thieves on Friday. Then they turn around and play Breach the next day. And like I said earlier, I think a lot of people have those three teams all in one tier in the middle. So yeah, we'll find out where Surge ranks in that pecking order. Yeah, it looks like they're an underdog to Breach here. I think that makes sense. I do have Breach ranked higher. I know you have Surge ranked higher. I understand your Surge interest, slight interest, but yeah, for me, this is pretty spot on. Yeah, both teams play Friday. Both teams then meet up on Saturday to go for game two. I don't know. We'll see how it shakes out. I am rooting for Breach in the race to 1580, so go Boston. But yeah, very well could lose to Surge, no doubt about it. A tricky one to call right now just because these teams are very different. We haven't seen them play yet, either of them, but we expect that it will be close. Maybe you could see an over 4.5 if think the market is pretty right and think that these teams are pretty evenly matched. But yeah, other than that, it's tough to call this one.
Yeah, agreed. All right, moving on to Sunday, Legion versus Ravens. Legion plus 110 on the money line. Ravens minus 150. Legion plus 1.5 minus 225. Ravens minus 1.5. Again, how many times do you have to say this? Pass. Just don't do this. Do something better. Watch this game, but don't bet on this game. Don't bet on props in this game. I have no idea. This is a former battle of the EU that is nowhere near that now, anyways. And yeah, I have no idea what to say about this. Now, one thing you could potentially do is you can see. Actually, no. Has Legion played yet or not? No, this is Legion's first game, right? Or no?
No, they play Rocker the day prior.
They play Rocker. So what you can do is if they beat up on Rocker, sometimes what happens is the books take a while to adjust their lines. So if Legion beats up on Rocker, come in here quickly, grab Legion plus 110, and then be like, cool, right? Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they'll let you bet the lines for the next day, and they won't have adjusted them yet, so you can get some kind of free closing line value that way. But other than that, yeah, I've got nothing. I'd lean Legion here maybe, but also that's also Clayster's team. But I think they play the day before too. So I don't know. I don't know. I. But do you have any lean in this game, or is this another pass for you too? Right?
Yeah, no, I like Legion a little bit in this one as well. I liked him in the game versus Rocker. I do actually like him a little more in this one just because I have Rocker ranked higher than Royal Ravens, and the odds for both of these games are the same. Legion is a plus 110 underdog in both. So yeah, I actually like Legion a little bit. Just zoom out for a second and look at the Royal Ravens odds this weekend. They're a minus 163 favorite against Miami, and then they turn around and they're a minus 150 favorite against Legion. And I don't know. I have zero interest in that whatsoever. We'll see if the Royal Ravens steam comes through and they have a good weekend. That very well could be the case. I just expect that they'll drop at least one of the matches, either this one against Legion or the one against Heretics. So yeah, we'll see. For me, I like Legion a little bit, not specifically in a map 1, map 2, map 3, just I think they are the better team. I have them power ranked higher. Plus 110 to me is good enough, and I don't love it, but it's something. I'll take Legion.
Fair. Next up, LAG is back for a second game. Subliners, another slightly less prohibitive favorite of minus 1,200 of them on the money line. LAG plus 600. Subliners minus 2.5 plus 120. Gorillas plus 2.5 minus 163. Similar looking spreads here for maps and money lines. This is another example of, and I've said, oh, in 2 weeks this line will be, by Sunday this line could be subliners minus 2.5 plus minus 120. If subliners were to beat Optic and then Ultra obliterates Gorillas in the way that they're projected to, this minus 2.5 is minus 120, maybe even minus 140. by the time this game kicks off on Sunday. Keep that in mind. I think it's worth it to bet on Subliners here minus 2.5. Uh, but again, it's the same kind of theory. I think Subliners are a good team. I think LAG is a team that was assembled within the last 2 weeks. I think one team is better, and I'll take the team that is better and to sweep rather than a team that was hastily assembled and is not a championship caliber team. What are your thoughts? Do you agree on that?
Yeah, and I actually like this one a little more than the Toronto LAG match. I just think New York are the better team, at least as of now. So the fact that you're getting a little more value in this match versus the Toronto match is good. Again, I can reiterate that control spread. It looks very similar. The Gorillas plus 1.5, plus 137 in this one. It was plus 150 in the other one. But again, New York are an elite team, so I can't trust LAG to get to a round 5 and control. I don't know if they're going to be good at any game mode in particular. I think New York should be good. Even if they lose to Optic, this is a great just bounce back game for them on Sunday. Get right game, if you will, to just go in and beat up on Gorillas. That being said, do I think Gorillas will lose 3-0 in both matches?
Yes.
Probably not. Like, it very well could happen. If there is a team that's going to do that, it will be this team, considering they're bad and they play two very good teams. So, I don't know. We see surprises, though. It's week 1. Wacky stuff can happen, but yeah, it does not look good for LA Gorillas this weekend at all.
I would just say that I feel like the problem is that, like, if this team had been built months ago and they have been practicing together, like, even last year with the lower ranked teams, because what was the worst team to start last year was, what was the last team that was built? Because it wasn't Legion, was it? No. Or was it?
London, maybe?
It was either
I
London
don't
or
know.
Legion, or maybe it was LAG as well. I can't know. LAG was been built a while ago because they had RCDs. But I just, this team clearly does, the company that owns this team doesn't want it to exist. They're just like, no. I think it's very hard to say, oh, actually, no. They wanted to build a team to not get fined, and that's exactly what they have. And the time to play LAG will be there. It's just not now. Here's the thing: as we say, okay, they're minus 2.5s against them is going to start going up. What happens in? Actually, I'm not sure they play next week, but at some point they're going to play like Minnesota, and they're going to be way too small of a dog then, and they're going to have improved slightly over the last couple of games, right? And we'll pick that up. The time to play LAG is not now. The time to play LAG is after Christmas when they're like plus 1, 2, like when they're plus 2.5, plus 110, and then you're getting like plus 60 on a hard point spread, plus 2.5 on a search. Like, that's when the time to play LAG is. Not now. Not this weekend. In the future, yes, but not this weekend. Second last match of the week, another race to 1580 match. Thieves versus FaZe. This could be potentially a good one here. This is one of the juicier money lines. That's a plausible win, I'd say. Thieves plus 162 on the money line. FaZe minus 225. Thieves plus 1.5 minus 150. FaZe minus 1.5 plus 110. I'd wait. I don't want to bet this yet because if Surge were to beat Thieves, then that could throw this all into chaos, and then basically this line would go to be plus. And if FaZe crushes Breach, this line is suddenly plus 200. And I'd wait for the results of those first games before touching this game, but this game could be potentially good. We're going to see how good this Thieves team is. They're playing against a team that's comparable to them, and then a team that's better than them. And we're going to know really quickly whether or not this team can actually compete with the big boys here. I don't know if this is technically a Draza revenge game, because he was on Thieves last year,
Oh,
but
yeah.
there isn't. They didn't really cut him. They just got rid of everybody because their contracts ran out. So it's not really revenge. It's just like it's a business transaction. But no, I don't know if it's yeah. I'm excited to see this game. I'm excited to see if I'm right about how. Because here's the thing, Thieves are favored over Surge. If Surge now we both like Surge. If Surge beats them, it means we were right about Surge. But at the same time, I still do like Thieves roster construction. So it's possible that Surge could be a top 4 team, and FaZe. Just because Surge beats Thieves doesn't mean that Thieves are bad. If that makes sense. That's my take on this game. What do you have here?
Yeah, I think this is a really intriguing game. It's one of the few games this week where it's not a super close spread, but it's not a blowout either. There is some intrigue to it. If you go back to that initial match we talked about, FaZe versus Breach, and you look at this one, FaZe versus Thieves, to me, Thieves and Breach, at least for now, I think are very close in power rankings. That being said, I actually like FaZe a little bit more in this match because you are getting a discount on some of the FaZe prices, including their search and destroy spread. Say that 5 times fast. -1.5 is now +110 in this match. I think the Thieves will be good too. I think they'll qualify for champs. I think there's no doubt they are worse than they were last year. But weird things happen. Thieves maybe lose to Surge in their first match and then come out and beat FaZe here on Sunday. Things don't make sense sometimes. I could totally see that happening. These games between LA and Atlanta are always close. Yeah, draws a revenge game, I think, absolutely. I think anytime you play a former team, even if it was just like you didn't get your contract picked up, I call it a revenge game. So, spicy here on Sunday afternoon. But yeah, I'm going to stick with All Reliable, and for me, that is FaZe, Search and Destroy. I think they can get it done in around 10 or quicker. So that's where I lean now. The -1.5 match spread for FaZe, I'm not in love with in either of their games. They weren't a strong hardpoint team last year. Maybe that carries over into this year. I think Draza helps with that, but we'll see. We'll just have to wait and see how some of these matches go first. Yeah, for me, it's FaZe. I'm rooting for FaZe, obviously, in the race to 1580. But yeah, it could be a really juicy one. I think if you like Thieves, I think maybe wait, see if they struggle against Surge, and then maybe you can get an even better price in this match on Sunday. Because I could see their money line maybe kicking up to +180, maybe even higher than that.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, last match of the weekend. I believe this is between two of your teams. Optic versus Rocker. Optic -225, Rocker +162. Optic -1.5 +110, Rocker +1.5 -150. This game isn't bad. It's just that it's going to be really hard for me to watch this game and also NFL Red Zone at the same time. But it's actually not late enough in the game. Actually, this game would theoretically start at 7:30, right? So it actually would be around the time of the last. If there's like delays or game fives because they never planned for game fives. Like Optic -1.5 here, but you can maybe even get a better price if Optic loses to subliners. So I'd wait on that. But yeah, I could see Optic doing well, and I'd wait to see how we see Rocker and Optic go in their first games. But then, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, interesting that this moneyline and spread is the same as the last game we just talked about. Dead on the same. So apparently FaZe is to Optic as Thieves are to Rocker, if we want to go and play that game. And I think in general that's probably right. Optic are maybe a slight step below FaZe. Rocker are a slight step below Thieves. As a Rocker fan, I'll be rooting for them, no doubt. I do worry about their outlook in this game. I think Optic are going to be really good this year, to no one's surprise. Yeah, I just don't know with this Rocker team. To me, this Rocker team looks like a worse version of last year's Seattle team, and that's not good. That's maybe you make champs, maybe you don't. Obviously, accuracy carries over from last year's Surge team to this year's Rocker team. I think Awakening compares somewhat to Sib, he's a good AR player. Maybe he plays for kills a little too much, but then you look at the SMGs and would I rather have Pred and Mac or Lins and Vivid? And I think I'd rather have the one with Pred on it. And unfortunately, Pred is on Optic now. Yeah, I think this is a tough one for Minnesota. That being said, I don't really like the Optic numbers that much. The books seem to think they're just hedging and saying, we think Optic are better in hardpoint, better in search, slightly better in control, but not convincingly. And yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. Some of these teams will be really good at some game modes. Some teams won't be. It's very rare that you have teams match up and one is always a little bit better in whatever game mode it is. But yeah, again, a good learning experience for Rocker. Obviously, going up against one of the big dogs, we'll see if they can hang. My guess is that they won't, though. An Optic 3-1 seems likely, but we'll see.
That is a good point, right? Like, even for me, I don't know about you, but the difference between FaZe and Thieves is a lot smaller, in my opinion, than the difference between Optic and Rocker. Now, I think the books have it that way, that they're similar distances apart in terms of ranking, but I think that Thieves is a lot closer to FaZe than Rocker is to Optic. So that's why maybe I don't mind the -1.5, and then maybe pepper in some spreads here. But again, those spreads could get even better if Optic loses on Friday. Bet against Optic on Friday, and then take the winnings and then invest it back into Optic spreads on Sunday. That's how we do it, folks. Okay. That is it for week 1. So this is a new game. It's beating the market. So this is a derivative off of kind of the combined model plays what we do for the college football podcast. We obviously don't have models yet because we can't really, but and even for the college football podcast, we obviously don't have combined model plays for the first couple weeks. So eventually this will be like both our models like this or both of ours like this. But for now, we're just going to put in 3 bets that we really like. And I've been very clear with the bets that I like here. I like Ultra -2.5. I like Subliners -2.5 against LAG. Just picking on LAG. I'm just bullying them this week, bullying them out of the league. And then I like Thieves Surge over 4.5. I don't hate it. I like it. Something weird could happen, but I think those teams are roughly equal to each other. And then you like just FaZe Search. You're a big fan of FaZe's Search, which, to be fair, they are very good at Search, and you're getting plus money on your bets. And then you also have the Legion plus 110 versus the Ravens.
Yeah, yeah.
Any notes you'd like to add? Yeah.
I just like that we're very consolidated in our approach this week. Like, you're just banking on LA Gorillas being really bad. And if they are really bad against Toronto, they'll probably look also very, really bad. Super really, extremely really horrible. There's so many adjectives I could throw out. But I like that you went that direction. You said LAG are going to be really bad. I did a similar thing, a different approach. I am going with FaZe, reliable, and search and destroy. Hopefully one of those can hit. They can win a search in round 10 or quicker in either that game versus Thieves or Breach. Those teams don't... I think Thieves and Breach will be close to league average when it comes to search and destroy. And I think FaZe is comfortably one of the best teams. If I can just get one of those games, hopefully they're both wins, but ideally one of those can finish quickly and not in round 11. That's awesome. And yeah, I debated a lot with my last one. Legion, I settled on plus 110 versus Carolina. Again, I just think those Carolina spreads are wacky. The other one I was considering was Miami, plus 120, I believe it was, versus Carolina. Anti-Carolina week, I guess, for me as well. But yeah, that's where I settled on for now. And yeah, as we go on, we'll build out our models and have some similar plays for sure as we get those going throughout the year.
Yeah, sounds good. And yeah, we will be back next week for week 2. There's a picture of Santa right there. And yeah, we're getting closer to Christmas. We have learned that if we export this as a PDF, we can't put gifts in it. We've learned that. That's the lesson week over week. And yeah, we'll see you next week. I guess it's a special Christmas episode. I can't wear a Santa hat because I have headphones in. But yeah, I guess we have Christmas, and then we'll be back in the new year with some more games leading up to Major 1. Other than that, yeah, see you guys next week.